So again, happy Wednesday. I am Brittany Roberson, the Choice Neighborhood Initiative Coordinator with Near West Side Partners. Um, I'm sure everybody knows that by now, considering we do this on a weekly basis. However, going into resources for the community and COVID-19. So, again, if you need resources related to COVID-19, go ahead and go to the Near West Side, mke.org. We have a page that is strictly dedicated to COVID resources. We remind you all to continue to wash your hands and wear your mask and keep you and your family safe. Also, don't forget voting. We got an election coming up. If you haven't already gotten your new ID, please go out and do so. If you are not registered to vote, please go and get registered to vote. Make sure that your voice is being counted and so is your vote. It is very important. Along those same lines, if you haven't already completed the 2020 census, please go ahead and do so. From our understanding, it is still open. So if you didn't get a chance to do it before the end of September, go ahead and try to get it in now. Again, it's important for our voices to be counted and so that we are making sure that the resources are properly dispersed to the neighborhoods that need them. Okay. Next thing is, if you or someone you knows is in need of food assistance, please remember that the Neighborhood House of Milwaukee has a food pantry that is open on Wednesdays and Thursdays. On Wednesdays, it is open from 12 until 2, and on Thursdays, it is open from 4 until 6. Please share it. Please share it with anyone. These are difficult times, so just know if you need it, we are looking for ways to continuously support you. So get over there and support Neighborhood House. All right, for our residents of the Near West Side, annually we do a resident survey. This year is a little bit different because normally we get to go out door to door. That won't be happening due to COVID this year. However, you can take the resident survey online. Again, another one of those tools that's very important for us to get the feedback from our residents about how you feel about the Near West Side. It helps kind of guide the direction in which we move as an organization, but also those things that we are able to talk to residents about. So if you haven't already did the resident survey, go ahead and get that in. Again, we're not going door to door, so it's important that we are making sure that your voice is being heard. And one of the ways to do that this year is through our resident survey. All right, so up to our speakers today. So our topic today is You Are Not Alone, a candid discussion about domestic violence and community resources. Today, we are joined by Jessica Ballinger, who is the Milwaukee County District Attorney, Assistant District Attorney, right in D3 and in the Near West Side. So she is definitely in our neighborhood. We are also being joined by Emily Prosser, who is the Sojourner Family, who's at the Sojourner Family Peace Center and works as Sojo DV advocate for District 3. There's also a third guest, but I will allow them to introduce her. And with that being said, Jess, I am going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Welcome everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for a really important topic, and frankly, in my years at the Milwaukee County DA's office, certainly a topic near and dear to my heart, domestic violence awareness. Emily is correct. There are three of us here today, really to have a conversation with you in the community about some topics surrounding domestic violence, and really how to be an informed advocate for those who might need some support. So I'm, as Emily said, Jessica Ballinger. I'm an assistant district attorney at the Milwaukee DA's office. I've been here about 10 years. I am currently a community prosecutor. I am your Near West Side community prosecutor. So I'm sure you see me out and about, and I'm here to assist residents with all sorts of needs. Also with us is Jennifer. Jennifer is a domestic violence survivor, and she is here to share her story with us. She works with the Voices organization, helping educate and share stories from domestic violence survivors. Also, as Brittany indicated, we have with us Emily Prosser. Emily is a Sojourner Family Peace Center domestic violence advocate. We are very lucky because she works right with us in the Near West Side out of District 3. So she is an unbelievable resource that is at our fingertips. So just some background so everyone kind of understands why we're here. October is National Domestic Violence Awareness Month. Domestic violence is something that affects uh, all types of families in every sort of income level, in every part of every city. It touches all families. 1 in 4 women and 1 in 7 men will have been victims of severe physical violence by an intimate partner in their lifetime. On average, nearly 20 people per minute are physically abused by an intimate partner in the United States, which is more than 10 million men and women annually. And unfortunately, we are seeing this year through the pandemic, domestic violence on the rise. Here in Milwaukee County alone, we've seen a 28% increase in domestic violence reports since the pandemic started in March. So, we are cramped up, we're home. A lot of times where people were able to go to safe spaces like work or school, those really aren't an option for some folks anymore. So unfortunately, we're seeing a rise, which is why this is all the more important to get these stories out there and to be able to know where the resources are. So our goals today is just for you to be able to hear from Jennifer, hear her story, how she got help, how she's thriving, and to get some information from Emily on how to be that informed advocate and community member and to know where some resources are here in the community. So I'm first going to throw it to Jennifer and thank her so much for being here with us. Jennifer, first I'm going to ask you to introduce yourself and to tell us a little bit about Voices.
Jennifer, just before you introduce yourself, I just want to say to those who are joining us again on Facebook and on Zoom, if you have any questions, please go ahead on Facebook, drop them into the chat that's below the video. If you are joining us on Zoom, please drop your questions into the question and answer area. We do have staff monitoring those, and we will read them off in our question and answer section. Sorry, Jess, it is back to you.
And I'm going to send it over to Jennifer.
All right. Thank you so much for having me here today. I can't tell you how much I appreciate the opportunity to be able to tell my story and an effort to help other people notice signs if something's going on with one of their family, one of their friends, anything like that. I am part of the Voices Committee at Sojourner. It has been a huge help for me through my journey of healing. Being able to meet with other women who completely understand what I've been through, what I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, what my kids are feeling and thinking. It's been very therapeutic, and it gives us the opportunity to tell our voices and advocate for law changes and advocate with court systems and with law enforcement, and just ultimately to help other women and men and children who have been in our situation. So as an introduction, again, my name is Jennifer Mostyn with the Voices Committee. I am a managing director for Principal Financial across the state of Wisconsin, and I also manage corporate retirement plans as well on top of that. I have 4 amazing, beautiful children, 2 girls and 2 boys. My story started with, I had 3 children and had gotten divorced and was very happy. My career was great, my kids were great, everything was great. I met this man who I thought was great. And even though I wasn't looking for a relationship or looking to ever get married again, things moved extremely quickly. I thought this is too good to be true. We ended up getting pregnant, and as soon as I got pregnant, that is when I noticed the emotional abuse starting. Very controlling, very condescending to me and my children. And the whole time it was it was him telling me, it's because I love you so much. It's because I love you so much, and I care about you so much, and I care about you more than anybody could possibly care about you, blah, blah, blah. It got really bad. I tried to end the relationship, even while I was still pregnant, and I was not able to leave. Finally, when I was 7 months pregnant is when the physical abuse started, where he threw me down a flight of stairs when I was pregnant. That all started because he had thrown something at me in front of the kids, and I just calmly tried to get the kids in the car and leave the house, and he restrained me, smashed my phone. Like I said, that was the first physical. There were other times where he had he'd broken my arm. He'd sprained both my wrists a few times. But I would definitely say that the emotional part is the worst part of the abuse, as weird as that sounds. He had me so controlled. I would go to work and have this career and seem like I had it all put together, and then I would come home and live a completely different life, being controlled and told that I was worthless, no one else wanted me, putting down my kids. Every time I tried to leave is when I would get physically hurt. And he threatened me that he would kill me and our son if I ever tried to leave. And I'll go to my grave believing him that he would absolutely kill me. He threatened so many times that he would kill me. The way I finally got out is I had gone to talk to services. I had, talked to Sojourner and the Women's Center in Waukesha. I remember walking in there one day, and I just come from a meeting, and I had a business suit on, like when Jessica was talking about how violence does not discriminate. It doesn't. It doesn't matter where you live. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter what race you are. It doesn't matter what gender you are. It can happen to anybody. I remember walking into the Women's Center one day in my suit, and people looking at me like I didn't belong there. And I felt, people didn't understand if I had the finances to get out, or if I had this to get out, why didn't I just leave? And people just didn't really understand. It can happen to anyone at any point. I got a lot of counseling while I was going through it, and talking about how I could not leave because it was going to be more dangerous, that he would have killed me, he would have killed our son, and my other 3 kids would have been motherless. I just needed coping mechanisms of how to deal with living in this. And I was, just, this is my life now. This is my life. I'm going to just live, raise my kids, and hopefully die as soon as I possibly can, just to get out of this awful situation of being controlled. What finally prompted me to be able to get away from him was the night he strangled me, and to the point where I started blacking out. And I just remember laying there thinking, this is it. This is it. I'm done. This is how it ends. He ended up stopping choking me. And when he did, I started screaming for him to get away from me. My brother and sister happened to be spending the night. Then we had all the kids in the house. My brother came up, pounded on the bedroom door, and he's like, what's going on? What's going on? And of course, he was telling me, please, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do it. I didn't mean to do it. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm going to lose everything. I'm going to lose everything. And you're going to lose everything. So my sister ended up calling the police. The police came over, and of course I had to lie. I had to say everything's fine. Unfortunately, the police questioned both him and I in the same room. So what was I supposed to do? He's sitting right next to me, this 240-pound bodybuilder, sitting right next to me. And of course I had to lie, because I didn't know what else to do. The more research, the weeks following that, I did more research on what happens when men get to the point that they will strangle, and just the research of how once a man gets to that point, the next attack, she will be dead. And I believe 100% he would have killed me, and he would have killed everybody in the house. It wasn't until I realized that if my ex-husband had found out about what was going on with the other 3 kids in the house, that he could take me to court and try to take them away from me. And honestly, he would have had every right. And I went through all these years of this abuse by saying, all right, my other 3 children can go to their dad's house and be safe, but what do I do with the baby, and not knowing what to do and how to keep my children safe. But it was ultimately the risk of losing my other 3 kids that caused me to go back to the police and say, listen, I lied that night. This is what really happened. Thank goodness I had an amazing district attorney, and this was in Waukesha County, but we were able to, the district attorney ended up charging him with 10 different felonies and assault battery charges. It was hell going through a divorce and child custody war with him, while he's still threatening to kill me and kill our son, and I had to hand my son over to him. But it was ultimately the criminal court that saved my life and my son's life. It took about 1.5 years to lead up to trial. We had a week-long jury trial, and he was found guilty on 9 out of the 10 charges. Thank God for the judge. He was sentenced to 8.5 years prison. At that point, my son was only 4. And I knew once he gets out of prison, he's going to take me right back to family court. And unfortunately, family court would just hand him right over. So thank God the DA's office pushed really hard to get the judge to have 10 years after he gets out of prison, he can't contact my son or I for those 10 years. So they gave us 18.5 years protection. What's going to happen when he gets out? I don't know. I fear for that day every second of my life. I have 6 years left to go. My big thing for women is if he tells you he's going to kill you, he means it. If he's controlling you, the signs to look for are, and I know my family and friends obviously had questioned me on things. There were times where I was just begging for someone internally, just begging, please, someone notice. I remember one time we went to, my family's at dinner for my grandparents' anniversary. And it was after a time he had picked me up by my throat and threw me across the room, and my entire arm was just covered in bruises. And I pulled my sleeve up at the dinner table, just in the hopes of somebody, please notice this and ask me about it. Please, somebody help me. And then the second my sister said something, I got scared. I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? What am I doing? He's going to kill me. Just signs to look for. And even when I'm speaking with women who are going through it now, I understand why it's so easy to feel like you have to go back to them, or they are so manipulative that they can have you thinking everything was your fault. And everything somehow was my fault. And they can take you from this strong person and crush you down into absolutely nothing. And it's taken me years to try to find myself again. The Voices Committee has helped me more than anything, because these amazing women are the only people that really understand what I'm going through and my fear, and how to raise my kids and help my kids throughout this. One thing I will say too is I always encourage, somebody had given me the great advice of documenting everything that was happening to me, which in turn is what helped me obviously in court, because I had an email, and every time he would say something or get me physically, I documented. So I had 20 pages that I printed out to take to the police and take to the district attorney. I took pictures of everything. That's just what I want to tell women, is document as much as you can. It's scary. I was scared all the time. If he was going to find that email, I tried to hide it in some random folder that I never thought he would find, but it really helped me to be able to document everything that was going on once I realized that what was going on wasn't right. And it was hurtful to everyone.
So Jennifer, I appreciate obviously so much you obviously being willing to be here and share your story. I think you hit certainly on some of the topics that when we have these discussions, I think a lot of people understand, that when you're in a family unit, folks are being held back financially because they might not be able to leave, but you certainly really hit on that, like emotional, how, he was, emotionally controlling, and then it escalated from there, and you didn't emotionally feel ready to leave. So that for you seemed to be kind of that first and big controlling factor.
Yeah, absolutely. Which and honestly was the worst. Over the broken bones, it was the emotional control and how they manipulate your mind.
And you certainly talked about, when things got physical and the threats that were calling. And then as I understand from your journey and your timeline, it seems that but really before you even called the police, you sought out services. Is that correct?
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, I needed help to try to figure out how to find a safe way to get out. And even at that point, I shouldn't say I went looking for help getting out, because I didn't think I could ever get out. I just needed tips on how do I go about living the rest of my life in this situation.
And, do you certainly, we have a lot of folks when they're in this situation and they're able to finally make that call to law enforcement. For you, was it kind of having that family support and the family in the house when this happened that was that tipping point?
No, I was really upset with my sister for calling the police, because I was scared what was going to happen. He was going to take it out on me. No, and honestly, the police, unfortunately, where I was living at the time, were not helpful. Like I said, they questioned us in the same room, and they kind of seemed to laugh things off. Or what was sad to me is that they didn't. I felt like they hadn't been trained to know what to look for. Where I'm like, no, nothing happened, and I'm all upset, and he's there completely cool and calm, and my brother and sister are saying, she's lying, something's going on. And the police just, unfortunately, I don't think they had the training to know what to look for.
To be honest, Jennifer, you probably really hit the nail on the head, and that they didn't have the training to know what they look for. Because, I think certainly as Emily, when she pops in, we'll say that, that is something folks are instructed on, is to talk to people separately so we can hopefully identify some of these issues. And Emily, I'm going to bring you in because Jennifer really hit, I think, on a really important topic that I'd like you to talk a little bit more on, strangulation. I think as an advocate, and certainly from the law enforcement side of things, we understand that when someone gets to a point where they will strangle another person, the lethality concerns go sky high. So, Emily, why don't you talk a little bit more about that and some lethality factors for us?
Okay, thanks, Jess. First of all, thank you, Jennifer, again for sharing. And I also really want to thank you for touching on the strangulation because it is a huge factor, especially when it comes to talking about lethality increasing. You are definitely correct in that once somebody gets to a point of strangulation, in that research that you did, it does escalate to a point where it very well could be that the person is going to be killed the next time. And when you look at something like strangulation, the thing about that is there's such a fine line between somebody just passing out, somebody dying, and you as somebody strangling another person cannot judge when that's going to be. The other thing about strangulation is the way your body reacts to it as a victim of strangulation. There's swelling, there's bruising, and that can affect you for days, even weeks later. I've met people who years later have been affected on jobs that they do because the strangulation that they endured caused permanent damage and they can no longer do the careers that they had set out to do. So strangulation is a huge problem. If you or anybody you know has gone through strangulation, please, please, please get medical contact after that's happened. Just get evaluated. Even if you feel like you're fine, you didn't lose consciousness, that's okay. I really encourage medical evaluation because that swelling, like I said, can happen days or weeks afterwards. And there have been cases where people die 2-3 days later because that swelling in the side of your neck, you have a lot of veins, those things swell, and then your airways cut off, and then unfortunately you pass away days or weeks later. So please make sure if you know somebody or you yourself have gone through strangulation that you do get medically evaluated. But that is a huge risk for us when we see those come up in our cases as an advocate, that they get put on a list of high-risk clients because we know that that line of fatality is inching closer.
And Emily, Jennifer talked about, the bruising and almost kind of, I think, subconsciously trying to reach out for help. And oftentimes, folks will start dropping hints to friends or family that something might not be right, or family starts noticing something. So, as an advocate, one, what are some signs to look for? And two, if folks have some concerns, what is a good way that you can be supportive and try to address that with someone who might be being victimized?
Sure. So as a friend or family member, if you notice somebody that, they're in a relationship, whether it's new or not, and they suddenly become very withdrawn, they're only spending time with that person. In Jennifer's case, she was still going to work. She was still able to do those things. But sometimes abusers don't allow that to happen. They suddenly will make it so that that person can't go to work. If you just notice big changes in personalities, things like that, generally speaking, there's something going on there. Those are some big red flags. If you see physical marks like the bruising Jennifer was talking about, if you happen to notice even little things, when it comes to injuries, usually there's excuses, like I ran into something, I fell, those kinds of things. And those become more and more common. And those tend to be some red flags. If you would like to approach somebody about that, do it in a very gentle way, because as Jennifer said, she was very angry with her sister for calling police. And that's extremely understandable because she was scared about what was going to happen. The thing that we need to understand and really honor is that the survivor knows best for their situation. You're not in the everyday for that person. So, if I use Jennifer's example, she was telling us that she truly believed her husband could kill her and her kids. You don't want to jump in and do something that could escalate that situation. So if you are able to get some time alone with that person and just gently talk to them about, I've noticed these things are happening. Are you okay? Is there something I can do for you? Is there some way I can support you? Do you feel safe at home? I just want to listen. I just want to talk to you, those kinds of things. Our instinct as friends and family members is to protect. But we always say as advocates that we can't be friends and advocates at the same time. So the best thing to do then is to be a supportive friend or family member and get them connected to an advocate then, because that advocate can get them the resources or talk them through what they need to get through the day-to-day, as Jennifer was saying, of trying to figure out how do I live my life in this situation. And you as a friend or family member can still be that friend or family member, because you're going to want to be protective. You're going to want to make sure that this person's okay. And that's an instinct for us, but you have to really trust and honor that that person, as hard as it is, knows what's best for their situation, because you don't want to jump in and make things worse, unfortunately.
And, Emily, you talked about, being able to, either be a friend or family or be an advocate, and you can't do both. I know something we certainly talk about. So let's talk a little bit more about advocacy. What are some of the resources that are then available in our community when people are, in a safe spot and ready and willing to ask for assistance?
Absolutely. So as we've been talking about, Jennifer and myself, we both partner with Sojourner Family Peace Center. So we're the largest domestic violence agency in southeastern Wisconsin. We have a lot of different advocacy resources available. We can help with legal resources. We can help with just general advocacy of what are my next steps? This is what I need to talk about right now. How do I safety plan? Like, this is my situation right now in this moment. So how do I stay safe where I am? And then if you get to a point where you decide, okay, I need to get out of this situation, then we plan for that situation. And how do I stay safe leaving this home with an abusive partner? How do I keep my kids safe? That kind of thing. So we have a lot of different programs. My program in particular, as you so wonderfully introduced at the beginning, Jess, I work out of the 3rd District Police Station. So all my referrals come in through police reports. So when officers go out to a scene and take a report, then they give a copy of the report to me as an advocate, and I do basically crisis intervention and follow-up. I make sure that the victim has everything that they need, that if they need a safe space, that I'm getting them connected to emergency resources, whether that's shelter, whether that's, you know, do you have friends or family members that you can stay with, things like that. What other, did you talk to the DA's office about charges? Do you need a restraining order? Just connecting all those dots for them. And then doing that immediate emotional support before moving them on to more of the long-term resources. But you do not need to be involved with law enforcement to be involved in Sojourner resources. And all of our programs are completely confidential, even mine. So even if you speak with me, I can't relay anything that we talk about with law enforcement unless permission is given.
And so we've been getting some questions that have been coming in, and I think it just transitions really nicely, Emily. Some of the questions were regards into resources for children, as well as kind of that mental trauma, that emotional trauma. Are there resources through Sojourner that are geared towards kids, as well as kind of that long-term care?
Yes, so for children, we have our children's programming through Sojourner, and we have something called Camp Hope. So if you are receiving services through us, we also try to partner to provide services for the kiddos. We have some different groups and stuff, but then Camp Hope is something where we try and send kids to summer camp every year to help them build coping skills, but then also get them away from that isolation that I talked about earlier as well, and build that community with other kiddos. But we also partner with Children's Hospital and wraparound services. So there's a lot of different entities within Milwaukee that partner with us to do a lot of the behavioral health needs, Jewish Family Services as well. There's a lot of counseling and support that will come alongside anybody who needs help for the kids that have either been involved with or witnessed any sort of domestic violence in the home.
And Emily, how has Sojourner Family Peace Center changed or altered any sort of services to really, address the pandemic that we're in, and yet still be able to provide those services to folks who are in such need?
So yeah, the difficulty with the pandemic, as you said, is things have been increasing. And a lot of times people aren't reaching out. But our services have not really changed, other than we're reaching people more by phone than we are in person at this point. It doesn't mean we can't meet with people in person. We are still doing things in person. The courthouse is not really open for a lot of things right now. So that includes restraining orders. So our restraining order office, which is manned by a lot of Sojourner advocates, is doing everything over the phone. So they're walking people through putting it together online, or they're even doing it for people while they're talking to them. So we're really trying our best to alter whatever we can to make things still easy for survivors, and making sure we're reaching out and getting them the help that they need, because we know that they're stuck in a situation that isn't safe from the standpoint of not being able to go out and away from this situation right now.
Great. Well, I see we're coming up on time, and as any lawyer usually likes to ask someone when they're a witness on the stand, I'm going to start with Jennifer. Jennifer, just after having our discussion, any sort of final thoughts, anything last minute that you thought, oh my gosh, I wish I would have shared this, or said to look out for this, just anything as we wrap up?
Yeah, I really appreciated what Emily said about approaching, because the times that I did have family or friends approach me, I would freak out and get upset with them and cut them out because I was too scared. So if you approach somebody and they shut you down or they get angry with you, don't take it personally. They're struggling and they don't know what to do. And if you just keep coming to them in that calm manner, like Emily said, instead of yelling, "What's your problem? What's your problem?" Um, they need that help, and it feels good to know that somebody sees and somebody's there for you. What's not going to help is saying, "Well, I'm going to call the cops," or things like that, because in my case, I had to leave on my own. Otherwise, I was in too much danger. So definitely, and I don't want to make it sound either like the police don't do anything. I was in a very small township at that point, and I know a lot of police, Milwaukee, Madison. They have the resources and they do have the trainings. So part of what we're trying to do at Voices is get out there and make sure everybody gets this training of what to look for.
Great, thank you, Jennifer. Emily, any last minute thoughts for you as we wrap up?
I just want to thank Jennifer again for being here and really just highlight how much her story shows that, you know, one of the biggest things you hear is, why didn't they just leave? And her story is a perfect example of it's not that simple. And I can, as an advocate, give you a million reasons why it's not that simple. But when you hear it from a survivor herself, it is a beautiful example. So thank you again, Jennifer, for sharing. And I hope people take away a little bit something extra from that, of, like you said, not judging and not coming at it from an anger standpoint, but coming at it from a place of understanding and hope.
And I would obviously like to thank Jennifer and Emily for participating, and thank you for Brittany and Near West Side Partners for giving us this forum to be able to have this discussion to raise awareness, especially here during October and Domestic Violence Awareness Month. I know Brittany in the chat threw up the link to the Sojourner Family Peace Center, so there is information and resources there, as well as our Near West Side blog on domestic violence awareness and resources there. Also, as a part of October, Sojourner Family Peace Center has a large number of events going on to support domestic violence awareness. So I would certainly encourage everyone to check those out. Tomorrow is Wear Purple Day to support the color, to support domestic violence awareness. So that is another really easy way to get involved and to just show your support to survivors. So with that, Brittany, thank you so much for having us. I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thanks, Jess. All right, so I am just going to start by, of course, screen sharing this again and get us back on track with our presentation. So again, thank all of you ladies for joining us today. Jennifer, thank you for sharing your story. Like I had to pull myself together over here. You are a very strong woman, and I commend you for that. And I'm certain that the process was hard, but I thank you for being an advocate for anybody who is going through some of the same things, that are afraid that they can't move forward or that they're stuck in their situation. So thank you for being vulnerable with us and sharing.
Thank you.
So now we're up on our contact information page. So if you are looking to get in touch with either Jessica or Emily around DA stuff or Sojo's Center, please feel free to take down this contact information. We have emails for both. There's also a phone number where Emily can be reached. So go ahead and take advantage of those resources if you need them. Again, please remember, like, you are not alone in this situation. I think that you're giving a lot of advice. If you are a person who is struggling with it, or you know someone who is, please share with them if possible. Share it on Facebook, share it on wherever. We just want to make sure that we are getting the message out, especially because, again, we are in DV Awareness Month. So keeping that in your back pockets. All right. We went through the question section. All right. So with that being said, I'm going to wrap us up. So again, thank you to our presenters today. It was great having you all on. Also, thank you to our attendees both via Zoom and via Facebook. Of course, it's always a good time with you all. If you are looking for ways to support the Near West Side, please visit our website at nearwestsidemke.org to donate. So thank you again for your time and have a great rest of your week.